Welcome to Watching the Horizon. I'm Jake. So today I want to talk to you about the best place to bug in during an SHTF scenario. Now, to answer that question, you first have to dissect it just a little bit and ask yourself, why would you even want to bug in the first place? What is it about an SHTF scenario that's so bad that you would want to lock yourself in your house? Well, really, it all comes down to the safety and security and well-being of you and your family. For whatever reason, you feel that that is in jeopardy. So some of the reasons that you might feel that that is in jeopardy is because there is a threat or there is a disruption to food, water, shelter, sanitation, or security. Disrupt any of these long enough and you're going to run into a situation where the population of your area is going to start to become a little bit agitated. And it is with this agitation that we're going to talk about the first main issue that most people would want to bug in: civil unrest. Now, you can look at lots of different populations across this country through history that have gone up in arms because of one reason or another. The reasons might be political. It could be because of a natural disaster. It could be because of, police or a perceived injustice. When a population becomes upset or agitated, like they did in Flint because of lead in their water, yeah, that's kind of a big deal. Is that really enough of a reason to bug in, though, if you were in Flint? Well, because that particular situation was so isolated, communications weren't down, people were able to still go get water from other places, then while people were upset and they did in fact protest, it didn't become a situation where it was necessary to bug in. But what if it wasn't just Flint? What if it was all over the country? If that's the case, then you probably definitely would see some major civil unrest going on. Now, this civil unrest could display itself in the form of riots, looting, or even bands of individuals who decide to get together and they're going to go door to door looking for resources. Another situation that I want to point out is Hurricane Rita in Texas. Now, this was on the heels of Hurricane Katrina, and so the people of Texas during Rita got some advanced warning, and a lot of them tried to leave. Over 3 million people were caught on the highway system. People were reporting it took 15 hours just to go 13 miles. Needless to say, people were running out of gas and becoming abandoned on the roads. Now, this is an obvious problem because if, again, the scale was large enough and people were attempting to evacuate a city, you're going to run into a similar situation where the highways are just going to become gridlocked. And when they become stuck without gas, chances are they're not going to have any other resources with them either. Now, if you happen to live near one of these highways, where are they going to go to first to look for help? They're going to go to the closest door they can find. They're going to look for food, water, shelter, all of those things. Now, if you're not home, they just might help themselves. But what if you were home and they were really desperate? They may not take no for an answer. So the first general rule is don't be near any major highways, exits, or on-ramps. In World War II, it was noticed that the fleeing populace of any city against an oncoming onslaught would evacuate through the major roads. And as they did so, many of them didn't have a lot of resources to bring with them. And it was observed that these individuals would often scavenge any and all resources they could find on either side of the road up to approximately 9 miles. Most of these people were doing this on foot, of course. And so, as a good rule of thumb, 9 miles on any side of the highway puts you potentially in a zone for scavengers if they find themselves stuck on a highway trying to get from one place to another. Now, in this day and age, I don't know if 9 miles specifically is a good number or not, but it's at least something to keep in mind if you are in close proximity to a highway or an interstate. If people were to run out of food, or if their water becomes contaminated, or for whatever reason people just generally didn't feel safe, then I would say that the biggest issue that you're going to run into is the population itself. Now, as a good prepper, you should have stores of food and water and a means to defend and secure your own property. But what is the real danger here? If you were to take this exact same scenario and plop yourself in the middle of the country, and I mean like rural country, then you wouldn't necessarily have the same issues that you would in the middle of a city. In the middle of a city, you're going to have a much more dense population of individuals who aren't prepared. And it's the people who aren't prepared that become desperate when they look to the government or they look to other organizations to give them the resources they need to survive because they didn't prepare for themselves, is when they become violent. I pose to you that this is the greatest danger in any situation, and it doesn't matter if it's EMP or if it's civil war or if it's peak oil or financial collapse. The reason doesn't really matter. It's only due to people being unprepared. This is the number one reason why you would want to bug in at all. You just want to stay out of it. Now, the best way to stay out of it is to not be in a city. Now, it's probably unrealistic to expect all of you to simply pick up and move out of the city. If you can, do so. If you can't, and most of us can't, then what are some of the things that you can do because you have to live in a city? Well, if you're able to move, maybe you're renting or maybe you're considering making a new house purchase, well, don't put it right in the middle of the city. If you can, get yourself to the outskirts. Get yourself to the suburbs. Get yourself away from as many people as possible, and also away from the major roads. Doing this is going to go a very long way in avoiding the calamity that's surely to come in an SHTF situation. It's also going to give you a head start. If something should occur in the middle of the city that would cause a mass panic and a mass evacuation, then you're already that much further outside of the city, so you can get started earlier and you can get out sooner. Now, one of the things that we can learn from other evacuations that have occurred in the US is that cars, trucks, campers, RVs, they pack them to the hilt and then they clog the roadways. Something to consider, just as an aside here, is if you find yourself in a situation where you do have to leave, pack light. What are some alternative vehicles that you could use that isn't necessarily going to get stuck like a traditional car or truck would? Maybe a motorcycle or a dirt bike, but that's not the scope of this video. The best place to bug in, away from people whenever possible, but better yet, is near other individuals who are prepared. Now, if you're the only prepper that you know of in your neighborhood, maybe get to know your neighbors a little bit. You don't necessarily have to discuss all the preparations that you've ever done. In fact, I would highly recommend against it. But having meaningful conversations about just overall preparedness, just in case. There's plenty of recent situations that you could cite that would make it a good idea just to have a little bit of extra food and water on hand. The more prepared your neighbors are, the less of a threat they will become to you in an SHTF situation. I've met several individuals whose entire plan was simply to take from those who have already prepared. I honestly didn't believe it when I first heard it, but they only have a couple of guns and a bunch of ammo. And they were quite serious when they said, oh, there are several preppers on my street. Some of them are Mormon and others are just doomsday preppers. They've got more than what I need. I will be just fine. That's their plan. Get to know your neighbors. Make sure that everybody is on the same page as much as you can. That is the best place to be in an SHTF situation, is to be by other like-minded individuals when possible, or at least have them prepared. Out of the way of the major city centers, away from any of the major political targets, commercial zones, government. That's what I would recommend. So prepare yourself and have good conversations with your neighbors. And if you can, get out of the city as much as you can. I understand that isn't realistic for everyone, but do what you can. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes open.